Okay, I guess we'll get started. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm thrilled to kick off today's session. My name is Eugene Astone. For those that don't know me, I'm the current director of digital fundraising innovation at Stella, ST's digital fundraising engine. It's crazy to think that I've been in the fundraising industry for the past 18 years, so since 2008. And I think since that time now, I've been obsessed with how to connect the people to the causes they care about. And for the vast majority of my career, it's what I've called home has been the world of peer-to-peer fundraising. And I think during this time, my favorite part has been and still is being able to be creative in the space and coming up with unique solutions for our clients. And I think that's still the core of what Stella does, helping develop those unique technical solutions that help our clients' campaigns truly stand out in the marketplace. For example, I think a recent example was for Scouts Canada. They came to us with Shopify. So we were able to innovate within their current ecosystem. And we created a peer-to-peer experience inside of Shopify for our clients that allowed each Scout group to have their own dashboard and to really expand what they were doing in that space. And I think it's that kind of creativity and problem solving that keeps this sector so exciting and so engaging for us. And in this past 18 years, I've had the privilege of working on some really great events, a WWF CN Tower Climb, cystic fibrosis walk, 10CF, LSC's Light the Night, and also Heart and Strokes a suite of products. So whether that was Jump Rope for Heart, Big Bike, Hockey Classic, and that is actually where I met Craig. I think about 2009, so about 17 years ago, Craig.
Ouch, you're dating us, man.
Right,
No, no.
right? We still look young. We don't feel young, but we at least we sort of look young. And I think it goes back a long time now, and I've always had the pleasure of working with you, Craig. So that's been great. And to add some industry context here, as we look at the landscape today, the Canadian marketplace is a sector that's being tested. There's economic uncertainty, there's shifting donor behaviors, rising costs, and this is leading fundraising teams to feel that pressure. And I think peer-to-peer programs sit at the center of this. It's often the very first entry point for new supporters, making it the most dynamic ways to engage with the community, but also requires the highest level of creativity and coordination to stay sustainable. And I think that's where Craig developed this webinar today. He wanted to share how the Canadian organizations navigate these realities right now, what's working, what's changing, and where are the opportunities. And our hope today is that you find fresh new insights that help strengthen your peer-to-peer fundraising for years to come. My team here at Stella, and as I mentioned, we love talking about peer-to-peer stuff, building within it, creating within it. So if you do want to talk more about it, more than happy to have those conversations with you. But for that, I am going to pause and hand it over to Craig.
Amazing. Thank you, Eugene. I'm excited about today. It's as Eugene said, we've been in a space for a little while. Have some experience working on different events and I've worked for large national health charities. I've been in both Canada and the US and um also with hospital foundations and thrilled to be working with the ST team um and kind of acting as a peer-to-peer expert and sharing a little bit of information that was part of some work that I did last year. Um, in 2025, as Eugene mentioned, there was a lot of headwinds in the fundraising space, specifically for peer-to-peer fundraisers, from economic challenges and shifting donor behavior. There's the rising costs in general for things. It's all putting pressure on our teams. And um, I was thinking about the fact that having been in the industry for a number of years, there's lots of information um, around what's happening, but nothing necessarily Canada specific. And there's a lot of influence from the US, and so um, really wanted to kind of do what I could to find some information that was really driven by Canadian charities, driven by the Canadian people. And as part of that, did some market research on three different programs actually. not programs, sorry, and three different kind of initiatives. One, we'll reference two of them today because they were focused on peer-to-peer solely. The third one was around sponsorship, which will be part of next week's webinar. So an early plug for that one. But with that, we're just going to kind of jump in because as you know, we'll see how quickly this kind of goes through time-wise here. Bear with me for 1 second while we launch the presentation. And we'll just put it into presentation mode, and I think we are good. All right, and everyone can see my screen. We've got a table of contents there. Looking at the different programs, it's all like lose the chat now, which is always fun. But I'm take it that we can see it. So yeah, as I kind of mentioned, like this is really about sharing a bit information around how Canadian organizations are navigating the realities of life now and what we can do to try to maximize our reach and our fundraising potential and drive revenue for the great causes that we all support. So throughout the session today, as we talk about the state of Canadian peer-to-peer, the challenges of conversion and corporate participation, talking about what your portfolio actually might look like, and different options or opportunities there. We're going to be including some polls and a couple like chat questions throughout the session, looking for some engagement again, because one of the benefits of sessions like this, but just overall, is that the Canadian marketplace is so good at sharing and learning from each other, and seeing what successes we're having. And webinars like this give you a chance to kind of share some of those, but and learn from the chat, as well as hopefully from the presentation today. So please, I look forward to your engagement and comments and questions as we move along, and we'll have time at the end, obviously, to go through questions specifically. So on that, kind of rolling into this, the state of Canadian peer-to-peer fundraising. As we mentioned in the beginning, 2025 tested the resilience of our nonprofit sector. There's that economic uncertainty, donor fatigue, but amongst all these challenges, the Canadian charities continue to show remarkable adaptability and commitment to their missions. We're seeing revenue growth in the sector. It is largely driven by some of those bigger programs or organizations. So if you think of like Terry Fox and like the Ride to Conquer Cancer event here in Toronto, the cycling event. Those are large revenue events with high awareness in their markets, and they've had some good solid growth the last few years actually. But they're kind of driving a lot of that growth in the sector, and we're seeing kind of mixed results across other areas. Walks have a little bit of growth. Cycling events and endurance events and things like that are seeing mixed results. So there is some like variations in what's going on. But there are some key insights, and the organizations that are seeing growth in their portfolios have a mix of events. And so you think about, you know, uh, charities that have a signature event, whether that's kind of like a walk or a ride or a run, and or there's some kind of mass event that has that, larger appeal to the average Canadian. So there's a program like that in their mix. There's the do it yourself for, third party fundraising. That's, a way where organizations are really kind of doubling down on people that are closely connected to the cause. And there's some like good results there. But I will make a comment here that especially in that DIY portfolio, um, that's something that's a program for most organizations that has yet to reach its full potential. So a lot of opportunity in the DIY or third-party fundraising category. The other pieces like charities seeing success are the ones that have some kind of corporate engagement. So whether that is through their signature event or something, like maybe a smaller, more niche style event that is geared towards corporate employees and companies. Um, and we're going to talk about that in a couple slides. But we're seeing, that's another component. And then, of course, we live in a digital age, and anything that's kind of like more digital initiative wise or has digital event components are a big part of, providing that solid portfolio mix of peer-to-peer events. But really, like the key point here, if we kind of take it away, too, is that, each program plays a different role in the journey of our supporters and expanding reach and increasing lifetime value. And so trying to create that mix of events and focusing in on the ones that are doing well for you are a great way to be able to drive revenue and a part of what we're seeing from a success standpoint. And we're going to talk about that now. So um, one of the big challenges that we're seeing, and this was a really interesting research study. So works with an organization called IMI International. They're a market research firm. They do a lot of just fundraise or sorry, a lot of research with the general population. And then they, dive deeper into different industries, and one of them is in the nonprofit space. And in one of their general surveys out, we looked at putting in some questions specific to charities. And what we found was a really interesting fact. And you can see it here. So 9 in 10 Canadians believe it's important to support charities, but only about half take action in any given year. And so that to me is a huge call out. Like that's a big say do gap. So Canadians say one thing, but they do something different. So what does that really mean for us in the charitable space? So people want to give, they think it's important to give, but there's that gap. And so, awareness clearly isn't a problem. They're very aware of us and really our challenge is converting them. So how do we take that recognition, that awareness of charities and their desire to give and convert that into dollars coming in? So one of the key factors in all this, something that's leveraged by successful fundraising events is creating moments of action. And it's engineering a way to engage with people. And in each of the slides, actually, you'll see different variations of kind of ultimately of all the points I'm going to talk to. But I use a specific example here, at least with this first one is with Diabetes Canada. Um, some organizational background here was, the organization was believed to be or is seen by Canadians as a trusted resource for educating people on healthy eating. And over 40% of visitors to the website were looking for information on cooking and healthy eating. And so the um the result here for Diabetes Canada, or one of the actions they took, was introducing an event called Aprons in Action. So it's a cooking challenge that really kind of doubles down on the fact that people are coming to the website looking for specific information. Now they've provided a means of not only providing that information, but also engaging people in fundraising. And the cool part here that I really want to call out to support that kind of like push for conversion and engineering moments of action is the fact that this event has um, a voting and a social sharing component. So this is just a snippet from the website, but really it's about the participants that have prepared their healthy dish will post it online on a People's Choice a voting page, and they will push that out to their networks, and it engages their friends, their family, their colleagues, people in their social network to be able to go and vote for their dish. But what a great way to kind of like build off of the strengths and credibility that an organization has, engage people that are already kind of visiting their site, or that are looking for that kind of information in a unique and action-oriented way. And ultimately, that's a win when you think about it, and that's like a big part of it. And so I'm going to take a pause for just a second. We'll throw it into the chat here. How do you engage participants beyond your standard fundraising push? Are there any ways that you've found that have been successful in kind of engineering those actions or getting people to engage with your mission and with your fundraising beyond the standard, hey, raise your first $100 or raise $1,000 and get your prize. So I'd love to like see some commentary and that go in the chat as we move along as well.
Hey,
Um,
Craig. It's Liz. While
yeah.
people are thinking about that, Natalie also has a great question,
Hmm.
which is that she would love to understand why there's still potential with DIY fundraisers. And Natalie asks, could you expand on the why a little bit more?
Yeah, like absolutely, absolutely. And actually like it's well, I'm gonna jump to the next slide because I can actually like leverage some of the content in there to kind of explain that a little bit more as well. So let me do that. I'm just gonna close the chat back up. There we go. So here I've got the corporate participation kind of component, and it's about moving from like that corporate social responsibility into employee engagement. And um, part of just to kind of like before I jump into this, I'll address the question around DIY. Um, so do-it-yourself fundraising or third party is uh is an opportunity for charities to kind of engage with the general public, but also with people that are close to their mission. And the reason why it's still standing out as an opportunity is that there are a few that are doing very, very well. There are some that really have gone beyond just the standard, awareness day. So like whether it's a birthday or, some type of celebratory moment in a family, like I said, with birthdays or specific days, even like, we've got Heart Month and then you've got Rare Disease Month, you've got Cancer Month and the different kind of like times where organizations push their messaging, and actually have found ways to like really engage with their supporters in a way that's meaningful to them. And so this is about kind of like creating and supporting people that are close to your cause in raising more dollars than just participating in kind of one of your signature events. The big thing here is that people trust people. And so like when you've got, someone like so just use myself as the example in this, it's, if I'm connected to an organization and I'm the one that does the outreach to my network, it's because I'm personally taking and making a push uh for the outcome for the results, and that kind of like connection and trust that people have in me is often why people or why others will support. Um, and giving the tools and resources, the doing the outreach, even having the cultivation of prospective DIY fundraisers is something that really hasn't been explored or leveraged by the majority of organizations. It's a page on the website. There are some resources typically, but the actual like cultivation of existing supporters, and even just the coaching of folks that have been doing it, and creating that community to share and learn from each other, is just a tremendous opportunity within the DIY space. And like I said, there's a handful of organizations that are doing it very well, that are, creating a way to engage those supporters in a meaningful way, and then giving them the coaching along with the resources and creating a community of DIY fundraisers that are seeing some great results. But like I said, the majority of when we surveyed the different organizations, all the respondents, really kind of highlighted the fact that that was a big opportunity there, and really just a piece for them to leverage their supporters in the storytelling so that they raise more money from their third party fundraisers. Happy to kind of like dive deeper into that as we kind of like go through the question and answer period of today as well. But it's actually similar to this kind of philosophy here too with the corporate participation. Employee engagement is a revenue driver. And so corporate and workplace teams are a critical source of participation and revenue. And one of the key ways to do that is by designing a program that employees can actively participate in. And that's kind of like one of the lessons that we can kind of like just a common thread here is like looking at ways to really support active participation, whether that's in an existing event, a new event that you're looking to launch, or in the third party fundraising. It's really about, looking for ways to actively support and make it easy for people to participate. Um, One of the examples that we're kind of like highlighting here that kind of pushes in on some of those ways of engaging employees was an event that War Child Canada has done. Um, like many organizations, they had a gala, it was successful, but they were needing other ways to engage the corporate community throughout the year. Um, many companies are looking for new events for employee engagement. They're looking for social outings, while still delivering on their CSR goals. And we know that, for employees, they feel significantly better about their employer when it partners meaningfully with a charity. So those things are, kind of big pluses for this. And War Child was kind of aware of that and put together an event that was called the Ultimate Air Hockey Showdown. And it was really about, putting together something super simple. It was an air hockey tournament. They hosted it at the Real Sports Bar in downtown Toronto. So that was outside of Scotiabank Arena where the Leafs and the Raptors play. Like a hub typically for sports and in the downtown Toronto area. And for them, it was purely a corporate outreach piece. We're able to engage companies and their employees to come out for an evening of fun and games and some competition and raising dollars for their cause and it tied nicely back to them as an organization because they had people that were playing games, were playing air hockey in order to support their mission, which was, supporting kids that don't have the opportunity to play quite like we do here. And so there was a great kind of alignment in the activity itself with what the event was, and that just resonates with corporate Canada, and employees felt that, connection to what they were doing, and then we're able to have a fun time in a social environment as well. But again, like that's the kind of like an underlying message or underlying theme there is really, again, like I said, it's that, finding ways to um, allow people to actively participate and engage with your organization and learn more about your mission. It's great. Peer-to-peer fundraising or peer-to-peer events is a portfolio and not necessarily a single event. Um, Kind of mentioned this as I opened up, and really like a key learning out of the research from last year was that charities that focus on fewer, better run events are achieving stronger results than those who kind of spread their staff across multiple formats and or or dispersed amongst multiple communities. And herein lies one of those big kind of challenges as well. It's an opportunity for sure, but it's a challenge as well as determining what the right mix of events might be. Um, and it's important to be able to kind of really treat programs uniquely. You need to have things for each program. There should be something like a program metric tree, defined audience or personas, things that you're kind of actively looking at and driving towards. And on that note, we're going to take put a poll up here just for the group. Just curious to get an idea on, do you have a program metric tree for each of your programs or any of your programs? Do you segment event participants? And when I say that, it's like looking at individual fundraisers versus folks that are coming in as friends and family teams or even corporate teams, things like that. Do you have like a top fundraising segment of people? Um, do you have defined participant personas or audiences that you're trying to reach? What does that look like for you and your organization? And we're going to look to Liz and others just to see how we're doing on the polls coming through.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So far 80% do not have a metric tree, a program metric tree. Um, so you may want to dive into that a bit, Craig. Do you segment event participants? Yes, most people do. So 75%, no, now 77. So we're still telling the responses, Craig. So that's great that people are segmenting their event participants. And then the final question, do programs have a defined participant persona or personas? Most do. So that's excellent as well. Very good.
Wonderful. So I'll spend a second on just on the program metric tree. Because and in some cases, it's so I'm gonna admit I'm a data guy. I love being able to look at the metrics and KPIs. And that's really what the program metric tree is. Oh, awesome. So you can see the kind of the summary there. So love that we are seeing, we've got segmentation happening within the events for participants, and that there's a defined persona or audience that you're kind of chasing, which is wonderful. Um, and the metric tree. So a metric tree, just really in short, is like really starting with you've got your revenue as like if you picture for a second, even like um if you picture like an org chart and you've got, that top box, that's going to be the revenue for your program, and that gets broken out by kind of a couple different key metrics that you'd be monitoring. And so an example of that would be like your revenue as an individual fundraiser. My revenue is made up of two things. It would be made up of the the number of donations that I received and the average donation amount. And those two kind of like multiplied together give me the amount of money that I would raise. And so that would be part of a metric tree. And the reason why that becomes important and why it's kind of like mentioned here um, is that the metric tree allows you to really focus in and strategize over what it is you're actually doing in order to grow revenue. You could look at events where, the number of participants in event, again, if you look at the metric kind of tree component that would fall under that would be, your number of participants are made up of the number of new individuals that you're bringing in and the number of retained participants from previous years. I mean, you actually could have a lapse group as well as something in there, but what is your strategy? If you've got a retention rate that is really high, then you clearly you're doing something good. You have some positive components to your event. And so it's about how do you bring in the new. So the strategy, the time and resources can go against finding new to be able to grow the revenue, as an example. And you can compare the efforts that you would put against, say, maybe the recruitment side of things compared to the fundraising side. And where I gave the example of, with my fundraising, it's made up of the number of people that donate and the average donation size. You may look and say there could be ways to motivate Craig to kind of reach out more aggressively to his network. And so I'm going to put some strategies and tactics in place to do that. And I'm going to say that, you know what, it's kind of beyond my control to influence the number, or sorry, the amount of money that someone gives to Craig. So I'm going to leave that to the side and not necessarily going to drive that as an action. And I think like it helps focus in on where you feel like you're going to be able to grow your revenue. I think there's the kind of the perfect segue into this image on the screen here is um, Cystic Fibrosis Canada. Eugene had mentioned them earlier. So there was a new event that they launched several years ago called Lawn Summer Nights. It was focused on that younger working demographic, so kind of like that age 25 to 30-year-olds. So they're newer into their careers, but they're getting established. They are really looking for an opportunity to network, but also like to be social and to be engaged in meaningful causes. And so they had this new event that was launched and was great for engaging that audience. But it was, how do you get them to raise dollars? Because it was a demographic that wouldn't have traditionally raised as much as maybe some of the other demographics like the boomers and Gen Xers and things like that. And so one of the tactics that they employed with the help of this team at Stella was a model like this. So on the participant page here, you've got a chance to donate to the individual's fundraising page, and you can see there's different donation amounts that are highlighted. And when you click on one of them before you actually click on submit to make that donation amount, you would actually see their fundraising bar move. And so it was a way of, again, demonstrating that, this is the impact that my donation is going to make to the individual's fundraising page, how close they're going to be to their fundraising goal after my donation. And in some cases, it was a way of being able to kind of like, just visually nudge someone to maybe give a little bit more than what they were planning, to get someone to either reach their goal or surpass their goal or things like that. But it was a really clever way to encourage that incremental support. And there was a couple different add-ons that you could kind of play with around, the average donation size, and, have a little pop-up that says, kind of give an extra $5 or $10 there. But again, like I said, just a really kind of interesting and unique way to drive that or encourage that incremental support, and to have it done in a really kind of visual way as well. So the other kind of, we've talked about this with a couple of with the first three slides, really have all been around some new events that have come into place to be able to address some of the opportunities that are sitting in the market. So we'll throw up our next kind of poll question here. Are you considering introducing a new peer-to-peer event, in the next few years? And so is that like yeah, I am, in the next 1 or 2 years, or maybe in like 3 or more years, or no, not necessarily at this time. But I'll put a plug in just with, over the course of even 24 for that matter, for 2024, but 2025 especially was a year where charities were really looking at just tweaking or changing their portfolio. It was, wanting to shift the type of events they're offering, or bring in things that are a little bit more aligned to their cause or to the interests of their supporters, or even to like what's going on in the marketplace in general. And I would say like one of the things that was actively picked up was pickleball. And a number of pickleball events were introduced in 2025 as well. And again, with some varying degrees of success, but again, a neat way to engage and capitalize on just interest of Canadians in general in something new. So we'll kind of give it a minute here just to see how the poll goes.
Yeah, Craig, so far people are saying the majority is saying in the next 1 to 2 years.
Hmm.
And then there's a maybe in 3 years plus. And oh, I was about to say there was no, not at this time, but now we have one no, not at this time. So it looks like people are considering, most of the people here are considering a new event in the next 1 to 2 years, which is very exciting.
Amazing. Amazing. There we go. Yeah, an overwhelming like 80%, over 80% are looking at that. Great. Great. I mean, like it's a really wise thing to do. Just looking at, looking at the marketplace, evaluating your peer-to-peer portfolio and kind of making sure that the right programs are being offered. And that most importantly, that your resources, knowing that like staff are, you know, often spread thin, so that you're getting the most out of the opportunities that you're bringing to market. So, where is the growth in peer-to-peer fundraising? What are we seeing as some of the ways also to capitalize on? It's it's fundraisers, and I guess this goes back to the question about why is DIY still an opportunity? Like fundraisers are a growth channel. They don't just raise us money. For us, in our industry, they create momentum. They provide reach. They add credibility to our cause and to the programs that we operate. And so it's a big piece of this is investing in the right tools. It's having the right technology tools in place to help lighten the load for staff for sure. Like there's no question. But to make participation seamless for the fundraisers, making that having the right tools and leveraging technology really is a way for us to increase impact. Um, and the ones that are kind of leveraging, like texting now is like a great way to engage with our supporters, our participants. Having mobile first fundraising tools, even having a website that is designed to be mobile first. Like so many of us are kind of using our phones on a day-to-day basis, and we get text messages that we look at far quicker than emails, because our inboxes, we have multiple inboxes and they're inundated with different things. Um, Elements like QR codes and fundraising apps, everything there to make it seamless, easy for people to engage or donate to the cause. Um, and it's especially appealing for that younger demographic. So our fundraising strategies have to prioritize these tools, really. And especially for converting participants into long-term repeating fundraisers. The more we can do to make it easy for them, the less donor fatigue, the less participant fatigue we'll experience, and to be able to keep folks. So I'm curious, again, just so maybe we'll throw it into the chat, see kind of what people say, but how are you leveraging technology in your fundraising events? I'd love to kind of like hear some of the insights or things that you're doing with technology, and we'll share a little bit here. Maybe what I'll do for time's sake, because I'll keep going, but Liz, if there's comments coming into the chat, I'll let you kind of maybe highlight a couple as they come in.
Okay, sounds good.
And I want to talk about like just, technology is an important part of growth in peer-to-peer fundraising. Um, Here's an example that you would share with one of the Stella clients that Eugene and team were part of, was with Parkinson Canada. This is just a screenshot off of one of their pages, again, and it was around a streaming event, and Parkinson Canada gave their participants the ability to create pages that were meaningful to them. So this was, there was the option for like being active and promoting your physical activity engagement, and in the integration with Strava was part of that. So you could show, how many kilometers you had cycled or the number of times you've been on your bike and stuff like that and gone for rides. There was this in particular, as I mentioned, was a live stream, which allowed them to connect to either YouTube Live or to Facebook Live or to Twitch. And for the actual live stream component itself as well, there was the ability to introduce milestones from a fundraising perspective. So it was that, think of it as if I reach $500, then I'm going to do X. If I can reach $1,000, then I'm going to do Y. And you think of it, I'm familiar with these back in the day, prior to it being digital. I remember the old-fashioned way of doing it where you got the pie in your face, or you ended up getting you would shave your head for reaching a milestone. And I'm grateful, that, as I'm getting a little bit older, I don't want to shave my head necessarily, not yet anyway. But like it's that way to engage again in a way that fits the individual and their personality and kind of where they're at. Technology is definitely something that is constantly changing and an opportunity for us to leverage. And you think of the reach and the interactions that come with being able to be live streaming on Facebook or on YouTube or to be out on Twitch and engaging with people in a meaningful way and even doing it live where you're pushing to get from one fundraising level to the other, and really getting people to kind of engage, and then that creates stories and things that amplify your message. What a great way to be able to kind of push and promote your organization, your cause, and to raise dollars at the same time.
So Craig, there's
Mhm.
there's two responses to your question about use of technology in fundraising events. And Phyllis says that using and promoting text to donate and QR codes for signature events and campaigns, which is great. So text and QR. And then Natalie says that we aren't using them yet, but we'll be looking at tap to give devices, which is interesting, to make it easy for people to donate on site. So 3 great uses of tech.
Love that.
And we'd love
Love
to hear
that.
how it goes, Natalie.
Yeah, really intriguing to kind of hear that. Like the text, for sure is text to give is big and has worked really well for organizations like Red Cross, especially. It fits obviously with the urgency component to them. And then even those tap devices, like the Salvation Army, when they moved away from with their kettle campaign, when they moved away from actually having the coins and cash dropped into bins as an outcome of the pandemic. They moved to tap machines, and a great way to kind of like capture some of those donations on the spot, and allow people to kind of go off of the immediate kind of urgency of giving or opportunity to give. So great things to be considering. And I'll put a plug in there really quickly too, like those tap devices. Um, Always want to just be aware of it that you often don't get the donor information out of it. So it's a great way to raise dollars, not necessarily to kind of like add donors to your database to be able to kind of like engage with them beyond that as well. So always something just to kind of be aware of and consider. But love it. Love that there's technology being leveraged and or planned to.
There's one more actually. Lara just contributed that they're developing a widget to allow people's choice voting, which is pretty cool. And
Mm,
and at the gala, an app for the guests to be on-site judges and vote. So that's cool as well.
yeah, that's
Really
neat.
cool
Very
stuff.
neat. So again, what a great way, like at a gala, it's always about how do you engage the people that are in the room and do it in a way that's kind of fun and stuff. So that's a great thing to be doing for sure. So a couple takeaways from this just in general and from the research that's been done, the insights from different organizations. It's we're in a world that is increasingly shaped by automation and AI, and peer-to-peer fundraising remains powerful because it's built on human relationships. Supporters give when someone they know shares a story, and asks for support. It turns fundraising into community and connection and shared impact. And it's kind of like go back for a second to the question about again about DIY and why it's still an opportunity. Um, this is the reason why it's still an opportunity. It's people give when there's an opportunity to know a story, and to learn about the impact it's having on the lives of individuals and communities. And our fundraisers are the ones that really can like amplify that message. And in some cases, they're the ones that are driving that message in the first place. Our peer-to-peer events and programs are often the entry point for new supporters. And they learn about our organization because someone that they know has asked them to support. So that's a big thing to be able to like be aware of, and make it as simple, as seamless, and to coach those fundraisers as much as possible, to really allow them to be the voice for you to amplify your message and to make people aware of the great work you're doing. Um, the other kind of component here is, there's continues to be economic pressures. I'm sure there will be. It will continue to be so. Leaner teams, it's going to test our capacity. And the organizations, the charities that are leaning into automation, that are authentic, and that are really pushing that, relevance, are seeing the real gains. This next phase of growth, I believe, really is going to be driven by depth over breadth, meaning like go deeper into the programs you have, understand your metrics and the which levers you can pull to influence those numbers. I highly encourage you to have metric tree for your programs to understand how you're raising the dollars and where those opportunities are to raise more. Something that we would absolutely love to help with, is kind of like breaking those down and highlighting some of those opportunities. But these like fewer, better run programs, when they're executed with precision, when they're personalized and they have purpose, it's going to do wonders for the organizations. So really, like as a wrap up, I think that our peer-to-peer future belongs to those that are going to meet our supporters where they already are and help them see their impact clearly, and ultimately is making every step, every ride, pedal, challenge, whatever it may be, a shared story of hope and progress. And with that, I believe that there'll be we're perfectly set up for the future. Um, so thank you all for the time today. I'm just gonna make one last quick plug for our sponsorship 101. This is going to be diving deeper into the Canadian sponsorship landscape study that was done. It's been going on for about 20 years, but we've got the latest results came out in early January from last year. And we'll be talking about that. But also, if today kind of exposed some gaps or friction points or whatever it may be in your peer-to-peer portfolio, or with a specific event, or even if you just want a simple second set of eyes on anything, please, let us know. Reach out to us. My contact information is there, as is Eugene's. And just as a follow-up to all those who attended today, we're going to be sending out a peer-to-peer readiness checklist that you can complete with your team. So it's just a simple, document where you can answer some questions, and based on how you answer them, we'll kind of give you a score and an opportunity to kind of reevaluate potentially anything that you may want to focus on for your peer-to-peer events or portfolio in general. So thank you for that, and we'll open it up to questions. And with that, I'll stop sharing so I can see some faces.
There's one question from Virginia in the chat, Craig, which is, what kind of tools do you suggest for coaching fundraisers? Which is a great question.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, first off, I think like having like a toolkit, a guide, that's just a PDF, that's something that's easy to share, or have it sit on a SharePoint site where they can kind of like log in and get it. So that outlines the tools, the resources. It has images that are shareable on social media platforms or copies of the logo that they can use in any collateral that they may be doing as a part of a DIY. Those like in support of logos that you're good with. So those for sure are kind of like the must-haves. But secondary to that, one of the best things that I've seen is having those like community share moments where you would have existing fundraisers or team captains or what have you that share the way that they have seen success or how they've put on their events with others. And so one of the organizations that does this really well and see success in their community or in their DIY fundraising is hosting these on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. Both work, whatever it is, time frame wise. The cadence doesn't necessarily matter, but they hold one during the day and then in the evening so that they can kind of like adjust for time zones and people's schedules. But they've got past captains and past DIY fundraisers that are coming on and sharing the ways that they have been operating their event or recruiting and supporting fundraising within their teams. And it goes over phenomenally well. A couple other elements to this, depending on kind of your abilities to do this, is even hosting like a cocktail evening or a breakfast or like a lunch and learn kind of thing as well in that way. But if you do the in-person route, the nice thing is you can actually bring, if you're if you've got researchers or doctors or other folks that can speak on behalf of your mission, it also gives them an opportunity to hear directly about the impact of fundraising dollars. And so that's another big kind of component is really being able to share back the impact that is being made due to the dollars being raised. It's that, that thanks to you, we're able to do this kind of messaging.
Okay, and Virginia just had a slight follow-up question. In regards to the tools for coaching, would you add that to the website so anyone can access those or should, sorry, you're nodding, or the other half of the question was the alternate, which is, or should people, they kind of be behind a barrier, so they have to contact the organization to get them?
There really is like kind of two trains of thought on that, and both are acceptable answers for sure. Some organizations are maybe a little bit more conservative, and so it needs to be something where you would have them reach out to you first before you kind of give access to that. Other organizations are kind of making it available right away on the website so that people can download it and go. Because so often those initial DIY fundraisers are ones you didn't know anything about, and the check just kind of comes in. But I would say that most have it be a contact your organization first to be able to get access to that.
And from my perspective, what I like in that regards, I like it not on the main website. So everybody who's not fundraised sees it because we want to make it as simple as possible. We want to make sure the calls to actions are there. So it's clear to register now or to donate. Those ones are at the forefront, but have it somewhere within the participant center. So once I've created my account and I've registered for your event, now I see somewhere in the back end on that dashboard my toolkit where it has all those images that I can download for them. Those are the ones that it's going to matter. And then trying to find ways to encourage your base to update their personal page. We know 80 to 90% of participants don't update their personal page, but the ones that do update their personal page are the ones that are more engaged. They feel more connected. And once they update, whether it's a personal message or their image, those are the ones that tend to start to fundraise a bit more. So how can we encourage them to use those things to update their image, to update their personal messages are important as well. So that's my point on that.
Yeah, and like just to build off of that, leveraging the technology is important because it's really, a key element of fundraising is, as Eugene said, is to get them to take that action or make that first step. And that can be making a personal donation themselves. So they kind of like set the bar for other gifts to come in as they do outreach to their networks. But putting up personal story, putting up personal pictures, even changing the picture so that it's something that is tied to the cause. Anything that makes them take action is a great first step. And then from there, this, it kind of builds and you get the snowball effect, which is great.
Great. Well, that's it for the questions, Craig. And we have 2 minutes to spare, or we could let people go early and grab their lunch if they haven't, or a coffee.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. I mean, it was a pleasure to be able to kind of share some of this. There's so much information to try to get it um into an hour or a little bit less is always challenging, but we're here to help, and feel free to reach out, and happy to have some offline conversations, and look for that peer-to-peer readiness checklist to come in your inbox in a couple days.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll let you go.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.